is Brian, and welcome to College by Brian. And today we have the incredible privilege of having with us Nick Freud from CampusReel.org. And Nick is a co-founder at CampusReel. And I really wanted to invite Nick here because CampusReel is one of my very favorite resources to highlight, both as I connect or have connected with students, or as I've done different presentations and have talked with college administrators. And I feel like this is especially apt during this time frame, during the midst of a horrific global crisis in this COVID-19 pandemic that we're experiencing. And I just wanted to be able to ask Nick a couple questions just as far as his experience right now. But and with just the sheer volume of colleges that are using CampusReel for their virtual tours, and as we know, campus tours are critical and always suggested for good reason to students as they navigate the college search process. But Nick, thank you for being a part of this. It's we so appreciate your willingness to do this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm super excited to kind of get into it. I have a lot to say on the topic.
Awesome. Well, I would say, so I come from an admissions background, and we used to say, for colleges that the greatest, indicator for what enrollment will look like is if students visit campuses. Now, I know, as far as what CampusReel does is showcasing that in a virtual kind of environment. But I'm curious, what have you seen as the primary benefits of students visiting colleges during the search process?
Yeah. So I think maybe it would be helpful to just explain some of the kind of key insights that led us to build CampusReel, and I think it speaks to that point. So what we realized when we began looking into this space is that there's no shortage of resources out there that help you understand all the quantitative information about a school. What we always say is, it's really easy to figure out what SAT range you need to be in to get into a college, for example. If you want to know the student population, student to faculty ratio, it's kind of at the tip of your fingers. What's much, much more difficult, and in our opinion, much more important than just the hard data and numbers, is understanding what the campus culture, community, and quote unquote vibe is like on campus. That really is why the college search process is so long and drawn out, because you're not just choosing an education, you're choosing somewhere to live for the next 4 years. And where you go to college and the community that you're part of, it stays with you for life. I'm still best friends with all of my friends from Colgate. Colgate is very much a part of who I am. So you really want to make sure that you are signing on to be a part of a community where you'll fit in, and where the people are like you, and where you feel like the atmosphere is something you want to be a part of. Historically, it's been really, really difficult to get a sense of those more qualitative factors of college just from your couch, just by doing research. And that's why we think that campus tours have been so fundamental to the process. Campus tours historically have been really the only viable mechanism for students to get an understanding of campus culture, community, and vibe. And we've heard, we spent a really long time focus group testing high school students and really just trying to get a sense of like what they prioritize in the process, how they were thinking about college search. And when we asked them, what was the most important things that helped you kind of filter your college decision? Universally, the two answers were: one, I stepped on campus and there was just something about it. I don't know what. There was a vibe. I saw students smiling. It was a nice day. I just felt like this is my home. That was answer number one. Answer number two is I knew someone who attended that university, and I was able to ask them honest questions about what it's like to go there. And that, beyond, a structured campus visit, any of the resources I saw, that really gave me an honest understanding of, okay, is this somewhere where I could fit in? So our goal with CampusReel was to kind of solve those two problems, giving students a sense of the vibe, community, and student body, and also kind of connecting them with giving them a friend on campus, maybe when they don't have one, through a virtual medium. So the question that we asked ourselves that kind of led us to build CampusReel is there a way for any student anywhere in the world to get a really honest and authentic understanding of a campus culture and community, all from their couch, all without leaving home. And the solution that we arrived on was working with real students on college campuses throughout the country to create honest and authentic video content, doing just that, bringing you inside the student experience.
I love it. The authenticity is so key, because I
Yeah.
remember I used to lead campus tours, and I wasn't really great at it. And part of it was, I wasn't a current student, and I was working in an admissions office as an admissions professional. But what I always noticed was that no matter how authentic I could be, that authenticity didn't translate as well as on authenticity from a current student. And
Totally.
that always held so much more weight, as far as that prospective student experience when they went to visit that campus. It was
Totally. And we always say, like, we think it's really important for students to understand how a college is marketing itself and what its brand is and what the college itself thinks is important about its institution and its program. So no part of this is that we want to kind of push out the materials that colleges are pushing out, or even in-person campus visits. We just think it's really important, after you get kind of like the poster of the college, it's really important to be able to get under the hood. It's not enough to just have the poster, because in reality, a lot of the messages kind of sound pretty similar from school to school.
Oh
Where
yeah.
you really get that nuanced understanding of what a campus experience is going to offer you is by connecting with the real students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. I use it in a kind of a metaphor when I've talked with students in terms of the need to visit a campus, was that to never underestimate this visceral feeling that you get
Mm-hmm.
when you're on a campus. And you highlight that perfectly, as far as like the sun was shining that day, people were
Yeah.
smiling, and the other ones I've used or have heard from students are like, oh yeah, I went to campus and people looked like their lives just sucked when they were
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
were on campus. And I
Yeah.
said, well, don't take that for granted, really think about that. And
Yeah. No,
uh
I
so
think it's a really good point. And on the flip side of students who step on campus and are like, this is my community, the vibe kind of fits. We've heard countless horror stories of, the family flies across countries to go visit a school, and they step on campus, and 15 seconds in, the student is like, nope, not for me. This is not the place I want to go. It's like, we just want to make this process a little more efficient in those kind of extreme cases.
Oh no, I think efficiency and the way that you guys have been able to display that has been incredible. This and kind of really uh, real trailblazing in that sense is what I've been finding.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate that.
uh, as far as in general, from a virtual standpoint, you've touched on the value, and as you touched on also the vibe that can be gained from visiting a campus. How are you able to, or what is to be gained for students looking into visiting campus virtually versus those traditional methods? And then also, when you mentioned, I heard you say kind of looking at the poster and then kind of really looking under the hood, or as far as moving beyond just kind of that picture format and really delving into the experience.
Mhm.
How have you been able to really um, take hold or maximize what can be gained virtually for visiting the campus, and again versus the traditional methods? Like what are students to gain from that kind of
Yeah.
modality?
So I think we live in a really interesting and unique time when it comes to digital storytelling. And the generation that's currently on college campuses, Gen Z, and then the generation also that is that consuming the information, the current high school students also in Gen Z, they're on the college side of the equation. These students are so ridiculously proficient in creating video content. Even myself, I'm 27. I'm not too far removed from the process, but I didn't grow up with these types of mediums, these types of communication mechanisms, and I am useless in a vlog. Like, it's just not something that I'm able to do. It's really second nature to these kids. It's not only how they're communicating with each other by creating this type of video content, but for the most part, it's how they consume all of their information. It's almost
Mm,
entirely video based. So I think it's become abundantly apparent that across all industries, there's a big push towards video.
yeah.
What video is really great for is transparency, and the camera kind of just operates as a lens that allows the viewer on the other side to step in the shoes of the content creator who's currently on campus. So when we're working with our content creators, in terms of your question of capturing vibe, we always say that we have two objectives in these videos. One is to give all of the information and visuals that you would want to get on a traditional campus tour. So it's really important to showcase the buildings, show what the dorms look like, show inside the campuses, and then offer up all of that information that students need to factor into their college decision. But then beyond that, it's really about turning the camera on and letting experiences happen for the community. You can learn just as much about a college campus and community in a video where a student's walking through the quad, let's say, and giving you all of this information about how big the quad is, how many students there are. They're also going to pan around and show you what's going on campus, and you'll see kids hacky sacking on the quad. You'll see like different on-campus events, and it's those, again, like vibe is very intangible, and it's something that you just kind of pick up. I've watched all 15,000 videos on the platform, and it's nothing I can point to and say like, this is the vibe of this campus, this is the vibe of that campus, but it comes through in these videos. And it's really great to see. I mean, these kids are just phenomenal video creators, and they understand how to put essence into these videos. And on the other side, the students completely can interpret the video content to understand, okay, this is what this school is all about, this is what that school is all about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting because you put the hands in those students, which is, I think, we always try, we being just, people are working in higher ed and trying to build up the students' experience, and how do you empower them to take ownership of that experience too. And I think back, this is over 10 years ago now, but when Facebook or different pages that colleges would run, the ones that were run successfully were the ones run by students. And and I think what can become such a challenge for colleges on an admissions site, which is again primarily used for recruitment, is you are sharing information, but how do you actually share an experience? Like, how are you telling a story? And I think what you've just talked about, as far as those students that they're great at doing that, you're showing kind of those real life moments that tells a story, and that's incredibly powerful.
No, I think that's great. And to that point, there's kind of two things that we always talk about when we're working with our college partners. One analogy that we always make is when prospective students come for an in-person campus visit, it's not the director of admission who's giving the tours. It's real students, and that really builds trust. And it's not just about the information that the student is communicating, it's about the students themselves. And you pick up a lot just from kind of the energy, the personality, the vibe of that student. The other thing that we're kind of trying to get administrators throughout the country to understand is that you don't realize, but you have so many digital storytellers throughout your community.
Oh, yeah.
Your biggest brand advocates are your students. And these kids are so proficient at creating video content. So it's not about having to pull kids' teeth to get them to create the videos. They want to do this and they love their school. It's really just about making your community aware that there's a mechanism to put videos up and let the kids speak for you.
Oh, I know, because I think they're excited to do it, and that's something that they can also add to a resume, or to their experiences, that they have been active in that way, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
I would also ask, again, referring back, there is this little known pandemic happening across the entire planet right now. And this has caused so much anxiety, for students. And it's had, administrators and staff, faculty, all scrambling, as far as, within the college sector. And there's so much gray area right now with kind of how to move forward, or what's going to happen, and with this upcoming semester or academic year. Again, we're looking right now at today's June 16th, and fall is right around the corner. But, how have things changed for colleges in terms of just trying to, showcase or to be able to provide campus exposure during this pandemic? Like, what's kind of shifted, for you, for your company, as you've been working with colleges, or what's been kind of top of mind in terms of, hey, this is how you expose, or provide exposure of your campus, considering this pandemic.
Yeah. No, so I think there's kind of two sides to where I see the industry going, just from my conversations with administrators throughout the country. The first is a real push to digitize that on-campus experience. And that can come in multiple versions. It's, structural virtual campus tours. It's virtual campus tours like those found on CampusReel with real student videos, and really kind of putting your community, getting your students at the forefront of all of your digital presences. So on your website, in your email campaigns, and any sort of outreach you're doing, students need to be communicating your message, and video is the best mechanism for that. But then the other side, and I think that the slightly more tricky side that the community as a whole is trying to work through, is how do we take all of those conversations that were happening in person and put them into a virtual ecosystem? Administrators aren't able to travel around the country visiting students right now. And on the other side, students are not able to travel the country visiting administrators on their campus. So there's a ton of information, a ton of conversations that just can't really take place in person. So to that end, I think, what we're trying to do on our own end, and what colleges are doing on their own behalf, is setting up virtual events, be it a live webinar between administrators and a group of students, a webinar with a student representing the school, and then a bunch of students and families on the other side, or one-to-one direct connections, either through chat or video. Really about kind of making sure that all the information that's fundamental to this process is still able to be communicated effectively, and tapping into these advancements in technology that have allowed communication to be so much more streamlined. So I think there's still a lot of questions to answer. It's a very strange, uncertain time, but I've been really impressed with the higher ed community as a whole in terms of how proactive, adaptive, and responsive they've been to what's happening, and how much they're really taking it upon themselves to put the foot forward and get these new virtual initiatives in, to make sure that they don't have to their students don't have to suffer throughout this process.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's, I've been in looking at the landscape, it's kind of, this crisis kind of breeds opportunity to really streamline things, and to really rethink about, okay, how are we, what we're providing isn't changing. It's how we're providing that we're really looking at. And I've been impressed. It seems like, what I've looked at and what I've seen, and kind of what you've alluded to, is that CampusReel, it's not trying to replace the physical visit to campus. It's trying to augment that, or trying to provide one additional element that's so critical during this process, especially in the midst of this season. It's
no, very, very well said. I mean, we've always said, there's a lot of value of the videos, and I think they do a lot beyond just communicating information about a college. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to put more data into the system so that students just have more at their disposal to work off of. So in a lot of ways, we think of each video as just a new data point. It's not always as clear how to quantify that data point, but it's more information and more data. And we think we're filling a gap that just hasn't really been touched on too much in a digital ecosystem. We don't really feel like we're in competition with any of the other services out there. We think there's so many different great services out there that are helping support students throughout this. We think we're complementary essentially to every other service out there. And it's really just, our niche, and what our bread and butter is, and what we focus on, is getting those student voices to the forefront of the community. So yeah, no, I'm really excited about, how the landscape is going to change over the coming months. And while it is a little bit scary and kind of ominous to look forward, I'm really optimistic, honestly, about what's going to happen. And I think once things begin to normalize, all of the parts that you loved about the in-person kind of college experience are going to come back, and they're just going to be enhanced by all these new digital and virtual initiatives.
That's so perfectly said, because I that's been the hope, and I feel like a lot of people are starting to sense that there is some things, in the midst of that's like, okay, this has staying power, and that's a good thing, and whereas the bad things, like a terrible virus, hopefully those do not have staying power. But yeah, and so my couple curveball questions for you here is, so you mentioned that you're an alum of Colgate. Did you, 2 questions there. Did you visit Colgate in advance of before you attended?
Yeah,
And then how many campuses did you visit in general? And then is
yeah.
Colgate using CampusReel?
Yeah. Yeah. So I did visit Colgate, and I'm one of those students who stepped on campus and was like, yep, I don't know what it is, but this is for me. Um, I visited on like the most beautiful spring day. And I think anyone who knows anything about Colgate knows that it is like absolutely freezing for about 5 months out of the year. So I'm not sure what my reception would have been if I visited a different time of year, but I loved my experience. I mean, I wouldn't have gone anywhere else. Um, so yes, I did visit. I applied early and I got in early, so I didn't have to do the more drawn out college search process. I visited probably 6 or 7 different institutions, but my one regret from my own process is that they were all relatively regional.
Hmm.
I didn't want to go fly across the country to go visit the UC schools. If I had a resource like CampusReel, like I actually now know by looking at CampusReel videos that UC Santa Barbara would probably be the best school for me. I just had, I mean, the students are like hanging out on the beach in between classes. It just looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah,
And then remembering how cold Colgate was, it's like I get a little bit of that.
yeah, yeah,
But no, I mean, it was a great experience. I just wish that I didn't, what we always say with CampusReel is we don't want students to limit their search options because of geography.
yeah,
Even if you don't end up flying and going to visit, just keep it on the list and keep it in mind.
yeah.
It shouldn't be a limiting factor that it's very far away. The other question, yes, we are working with Colgate. They've been phenomenal clients with us. We're really excited to continue powering video for them. And what was the third curveball question?
Oh, oh no, I think you've answered. I think the other
Okay.
one was just trying to see how many campuses you visit, and but
Yeah.
you alluded to some of that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it used to drive me crazy when I was working in admissions. Was I won't name the school, but the school I worked for was also in a very cold environment, and if I would go to a college fair or something, there were a couple other schools that were on the West Coast or on like a beach environment, and their materials all had pictures of beaches and like people really being happy underneath a palm tree or something,
Yeah.
and then all of my publications just had it was like this snowy environment. I'm like, how could I possibly compete with with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot to be the virtual, then that opportunity is an opportunity to be able to kind of see also in an immersive sense, especially with all the different VR kind of technologies and opportunities that exist through CampusReel too, to be able to really kind of, as best you can, kind of put that person in place, like in that location. So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've always said that one main motivation for building CampusReel was to communicate to students that Colgate is just really cold. So I don't think people know that as much. So hopefully those videos can showcase that.
But yeah, in your you I know CampusReel has received so many accolades, and when some of the most I feel like has been highlighted in Forbes, in TechCrunch, through New York Times, through I think it was USA Today. Was that possibly?
We were on the Today Show about a month ago, which was very cool
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, no, and I just want to say, yeah, your company is deserving of all those accolades, and you guys are you're a real pioneer in the industry, and it's yeah, I'm constantly impressed by the work that you all are doing, and so thank you again, Nick, for just your time with us. So,
Yeah,
and
no, I really appreciate that. I love doing these kinds of talks, and I'm always happy to help whenever. I love what you're doing too. So yeah, no, always happy to help kind of communicate new information to the community.
all right, well, thank you.